Hi guys, my name is Mrs. Femiak and I'm the Freshman House Coordinator here at Maryvale High School. And today we're going to be talking about what you can do to learn and study the most effectively. And everything that we're going to talk about today holds true no matter if you are learning at home in a virtual format or if you are in person. So the first thing I want to discuss with you is active versus passive learning. And I'm sure you might have heard of this in the past. People remember 10% of what they read, 20% of what they hear, 30% of what they see, 50% of what they see and hear. This is all passive learning. What we really want to be focusing on is active learning because this is when our brain is utilizing the information and processing it, and this is where we will get the best long-term memory storage. So in active learning, people remember 70% of what they say and write and 90% of what they do. So in all of your studying and when you are learning, you want to be active learners. So I really love this slide because it really shows you when you're engaged in different activities in the classroom setting, whether it's online or physically in person, that different things that you do really helps retain long-term memory. For example, if you're just sitting and listening to a teacher lecture and you put those notes away and you never look at them again, you're only going to remember about 5% of that material, which is not going to help you when it comes time to take an assessment. Also, if you read something, that's really good because there's a lot of reading in school, but you have to do something beyond the reading, whether it's answering questions or annotating the text in order for you to make long-term memory connections. Simply kicking back and watching a YouTube video, you're only going to retain about 20%. Also, just watching a demonstration, watching somebody do something for you, you also only retain about 30%. These are all passive learning strategies. If you can engage in a discussion, practice doing what you're trying to learn, and then take it a step further and teach others, your brain is going to store information differently, and therefore you are more likely to retain it long term. So it's really important, whenever possible, to always participate in active learning with anything that you would like to remember. Taking notes. Whether you are taking notes in an online format or if you are sitting in class and your teacher is giving you a lecture, it is really important that you put your computer and your cell phone away and that you go old school. You want to take notes using pen, pencil, and paper. Science doesn't really fully understand why the physical act of writing is much better than just typing, and there's a few hypotheses floating around out there. If you're curious about them, I have an NPR article at the bottom of this page. Feel free to click it out because science is trying to figure this out. But research shows that your brain will retain your lectures better when you take notes using physical pen and paper or pencil and paper, and you can also use color when you're writing by using colored pens. Your brain thinks in color, you think in color. So colored pens are also a nice way, fun way to take notes and retain more information. So just remember, it's very tempting to type your notes, but you're not going to retain the information because remember, with active learning, 70% of what you remember is what you say and write. And by write, that means physically writing down the notes. So try and resist the urge to type and write whenever possible. So at the end of every school day, you should set aside a 2-hour block every weekday to complete homework. So you might be thinking, Miss, it's not going to take me 2 hours to get my classwork done. And you would be correct. But when you are done with all of your classwork, that is when it's time for you to study. You can chunk large projects or large novel or reading assignments into smaller chunks and take care of those where it's a lot more manageable. But also you need to study the material that you just learned during that school day so that you can have better long-term memory storage. And there's a few ways you can do this. For example, you can take some index cards or just cut up some copy paper and make flashcards. You can correct mistakes on returned work. That way you can understand what you're doing wrong and make improvements for next time. And a lot of times if you correct mistakes on returned work, some teachers may also accept that for recovery work. You can create a concept map. This is those maps with bubbles and lines that have the main ideas and supporting details, your brain thinks in pictures. So for example, if I say the word banana, you did not think of the letters B-A-N-A-N-A. You probably thought of a yellow piece of fruit because your brain thinks in pictures. So whenever you can think of concepts in pictures, such as a concept map or a mind map, you're much more likely to retain it. You can use your notes to create a study guide to help you prepare for your assessments, tests, and quizzes. You can also explain what you are learning to a family member, and it could even be a pet. Remember, if you can't explain something simply, then you do not understand it fully. And when it comes to active learning, if you can teach something to others, you will get up to 90% retention. So teaching is a very powerful way of learning how to study well. You can also rewrite your notes in your own words. That will help give you more exposure to your lecture notes and content, but it will also help you remember it in a way that you understand when you convert it to your own words. Lastly, you can complete review or practice problems at the end of your textbooks. All textbooks that you have access to, whether they are online or a physical book in person, at the end of the chapter have review and practice problems. This is a great way to test yourself to really see what you know. So remember, once you're done with your classwork, you are not done with your homework for the night. Set aside a 2-hour block to incorporate studying. Studying in small chunks over a period of time is going to be more effective than cramming the day before a test. In fact, science has shown that just cramming the day before a test is not effective at all. Try these study strategies and see which ones work for you. The information on this slide comes from Seattle Pacific University Center for Learning. And what they did is they showed the typical passive study strategies that their students use and then gave them active study strategies to try instead. So this is a really great slide because it shows you different ways of taking things that you might see in either an online class or an in-person class and ways that you can study effectively. So for example, if you receive a lecture, don't read your notes. I know it's tempting just to think that reading your notes is studying, but you will not retain the information unless you do something with it. So for example, you could identify main points in notes and explain in your own words, have one of your parents or family members quiz you, or maybe a friend in class, create charts and diagrams, create a concept map from your lecture notes, rewrite them in your own words. If you do that with your lecture notes, you're more likely to retain it. Simply reading your notes is not an effective study strategy. I'm not going to read to you guys everything on this slide because I want you to come back to it if you would like, and I will also include a hard copy to this PDF and a soft copy as well so you can link to it. But these are some really great strategies that you can use to become active studiers and better learners. The next 3 slides contain YouTube videos that would be well worth your while to watch. They take about 5 minutes to watch a piece, but they have very, very good information. This video is from ASAP Science, and it talks about study tips that are scientifically proven and also talks about the importance of sleep. This next video is from TED Ed, and it shows the importance of sleep and why if you are not getting a good night's sleep at night, that you will not retain all of that information that you learned in class or that you studied. Sleep is the magic formula to help your brain retain the information. Without sleep, you will waste your time. You will not retain that memory into long-term storage and you will forget most of it. So sleep is vitally important. Check this one out from TED Ed. This last video talks about the best ways to study. It also incorporates the importance of sleep and gives a lot more different types of study strategies for you to try. Well, my name is Ms. Femiak, and I hope you found this information helpful.